Welcome to Global Health and Wellness Practitioners YouTube channel, where we're giving exposure and connecting great practitioners while educating and promoting comprehensive health and wellness globally. Welcome back to Tami Reagor's part 2 on healing our soul story. And like someone else said, is we compare ourselves when we're at the beginning with somebody that's already worked 7 or more years with figuring it out through all the rough stuff. So you can't compare.
And, you know, as a mentor or guide at this point, you know, people will say, oh my God, you know, how can you're so clear, or you're right on point. And I'm like, listen, I didn't start here. Like I tell you all the time, I couldn't see anything, nothing. Now I see visions. I get premonition dreams and I'll see visions and I share. And that didn't happen in the beginning. Like it just wasn't there. I had premonitions when I was a kid. Scared the bejesus out of me. I was raised Roman Catholic. We did not talk about this stuff. It just didn't happen. I would have premonition dreams. I would drive by places and I would hear the word fire. And I'd be like, they're not really dreams, but like moments. And I'd be like, what the hell is that? And usually within a couple of days, there would be a fire in that building. And it totally freaked me out. I was like, what the hell? Like, how is it that? And then I was in college and I heard that word, and there was a fire that night in an apartment that had college students in it, and they all died. And I just said, I'm done. There's nothing that I can do to change when I hear fire. Like what did you want me to do? I don't know who's in that building. I couldn't, and it wasn't an accidental fire. It was literally pretty much stupidity. They had, I don't know what they were doing, but a fire started in the couch and they brought the couch outside, and then they thought it was out, but it was smoldering. They brought it back in and went to bed. So it wasn't like electrical stuff. Like so I shut it off. And when I started to work on this, it started to come back. And I'm like, listen, no, you have control. That's the other thing. I think people are afraid of their psychic senses because they're afraid that they're going to see something or hear something or know something, and it's going to scare them. And then they have no control. But you just say to them, I'm not ready for that. Is there a step in between we can do? And they have to, because you have free will. So I've definitely used that a couple of times. I remember I was standing in a store at the mall years ago, and there was a full-length mirror. And when I looked in the mirror, I could see somebody standing next to me who wasn't there. And I just said, yeah, not ready for that. And then I've not seen it since. So although I'm starting to gather that's coming, because I am starting to see actual people standing next to me, I just can't see them in the mirror. But I'm just allowing. I was like, okay, well, whatever that's supposed to be. And your gifts are unique to yours. And going to your point, comparing. Like we all have different variations of them that are unique to you. How I've been able to develop clairvoyance is unique to me, and how my higher self has planned for it to open. And once you let go of needing to compare, oh my God, they can do that, how come I can't? Like people see colors around people. That's one thing with clairvoyance that people do. I don't have that. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I've seen pictures of what that might look like to people, and to me, it's very distracting to drive and see all this color. I mean, that's an adjustment in itself. So I may never get that, and that's okay. You have to be okay with what you have. It's what you're designed to be.
Right. And you can't force it, because also if you're forcing it, I think that you're doing what's the word? That's trying to come through. Disservice to somebody else that you're trying to bring it in for, or yourself. It's not coming from your higher self.
Right. They just said something else and then it went away. It was about
Disservice.
one, there's this idea that you're not honoring your higher self by trying to compare yourself to others. Oh, I know what it was. People will say, well, if I have my clairvoyance, then I can do this. Or I'll be happy when my clairvoyance is. And that you're just setting yourself up for failure. Like that's not how it works. Be happy now and be happy with wherever your psychic senses are. Even if they're brand new and you're only just discovering them. So I believe that many of us are actually using our psychic senses already and don't know it. And because they don't look like the box that has been told. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and they had all kinds of weird movies about psychics who did some crazy stuff, right? But that's not what clairvoyance looks like. It can, but for most people it doesn't, right? It's usually in the mind's eye, not out here. And when you say that, you discount your value.
Right.
You're valuable and worthy right now, not when you develop your clairvoyance or you develop your clairaudience, whatever that is. Our psychic senses, many of them are activated from the day we're born. We're just not told that there are psychic senses. So for me, I worked in IT for, 15 years testing software, and they could put anything in front of me, and I would just know where the biggest defects are. They knew that if they gave it to me, I would rip it apart. That's just what I would do. And my bosses would be like, you need to teach the other ones how to do this. And I remember the first time I was like, people don't think like this. Like, what? Like, I couldn't grasp that no one else did this. And I was like, I don't know how to teach it. Like, this is just who I am. And this was before I knew about the spiritual world. And I mean, literally, I was written up for it because they told me I was being I don't know what that word is, when I was not going along with the plan of the boss. And I was, all kinds of things, yelled at, screamed at, in tears, like, what, why? I don't know how to teach this. Like, I really don't understand how to do it. And I would tell my coworkers, and I would have never done that. I'm like, yeah, well, what happens is it literally, they put it in front of me and it's like light bulbs in my head. I just go, ding, 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 ding. And then when I realized this spiritual world, I thought, oh, I'm psychic. I can actually see where the energy runs and doesn't run in the software program. It literally just lights up in my head. Now, I'm sure I had unseen friend help who were like, can you do that? Or can you do that? Right? But I didn't know. And then when I realized that, I was like, okay, so how do I explain to my boss I'm just psychic? Are we there yet that I can just say, well, I understand now that I'm psychic, and I can't teach that. I can't teach somebody to be psychic. Now, what would you describe of the 5 or 6 that are out there, right? How would you even describe that? That's not clairvoyance. It's not, is it cognate, which is knowledge? I don't even, like this is how I'm saying, you have gifts that can't be boxed. Right. And you're already using them. You know those things that people say, oh my God, thank you, you did an awesome job. And you go, no big deal. That's your gift. Because it's something that comes naturally to you. And we overlook them as being special because they do come naturally to us. Right. My coworkers could not do this. And I understand now why. I'm literally programmed to be able to see where energy runs and doesn't run. And that's part of the gift and the modality I do, because that's exactly the same thing I do with a client. I can see where the blocks are. Yeah. But we need to honor the gifts we already have before we try to force a psychic gift open. Your gifts, the ones that you're already using, are your starting point. And once you start to honor those, the others will start to develop. All on their own.
And once I heard too, if we don't honor ourselves, how we look or how anything, so if we're not psychic enough, if it's all a dishonor to how God created us. It goes back to that.
Mm-hmm. And I still have people say to me, I'm like, I just wish I could hear. And I'm like, we need to stop, like you said, comparing ourselves to each other. We were all made uniquely on purpose. We all have a unique gift and purpose on earth. I always say that we're like, the world is like a giant jigsaw puzzle, and we're all different puzzle pieces. All puzzle pieces are different. The nooks and crannies and whatever you want to call them. And then they all fit together as a whole. So in order for us to assist, New Earth or Mother Earth or whatever you want to call it, we each need to honor what our role is, our purpose, and our gifts, so that we can fit with the people around us. And we were talking about this earlier, that then it expands out. If we were all the same and you put us together and you lifted it, it would just fall apart because they're not connected. Right? So, this whole idea that we need to be like someone else in order to be psychic or spiritual, or that we need to take certain classes. There's this thing in spiritual circles that you have to take certain classes in order to be considered spiritual. Even before you're considered spiritual, you have to do that. And I call BS on that. There's not one path, and your soul knows the right path for you. Don't follow someone else. You can listen to what they say, but then ask yourself, is that right for you? And just saying, oh, well, they did it, so I need to do it. Like, that's how many of us have ended up in jobs we hate,
right,
in the corporate world, because everyone else was doing it, so we did it. So in order to honor your higher self, you have to make sure that whatever courses you take, whoever you follow is in alignment with his or her truth, and not your fears, your anger. They say it's the age of discernment on purpose, because there's a lot of other people's truths out there that aren't necessarily your higher self's truth. So we got to make sure we're on that same page. And I don't know where I was going with this.
I like the age of discernment.
Oh yeah, total age of discernment. There's so much because of the internet. Love or hate, right? Double-edged sword, right? We have an influx, like smothering, they're saying, of information, and they're saying it's too much. It's like we went from a trickle to like a floodgate, and people are like, well, I can go and look at this, and I can go on YouTube, or I can go look at this. But in reality is that when we read something, we need to first check with us if it's for us. Not everything that's on the internet is for us. It may be for somebody else because they're assigned that role, if you will. But if you're not assigned that role, then you are taking time away from trying to figure out what your role is supposed to be. And there's a lot of people who get lost in that. And then I see them and I'm like, well, that's not, your higher self is like, that's not your deal. Like, you're supposed to be over here. Let that go. And then trust comes in, unfortunately, patience. I call that the 4-letter word of spirituality, patience.
The 4-letter word.
Because when people try to manifest, or they try to get a psychic gift open, or they try to understand their purpose, a lot of times I hear patience and they just go. I'm like, yeah, I know, I get it. That's you want it now. Wait, that's, but we need to really start to connect to our truth. And your higher self knows what that is. And instead of running after every lead that's on the internet or on Google or wherever you're looking, you need to first stop and say, however you communicate with your higher self, and there could be multiple ways, muscle testing is a great place to start, and just say, is this something, one, is it true for me, right? And is it something that I should follow? And if you get no, then don't, because you only waste your time. Your higher self wants you to be doing something else then. Not everyone needs to be focused on the same thing either. So when I started to work with the higher self, I started to understand, how could somebody's truth be different? Like, if you think from a collective standpoint. But we've all lived so many different lifetimes. Egyptian, Atlantis, Lemuria, Jesus times, Celtic, founding fathers, whatever. And that all has created all this beliefs, traumas, all this other stuff. that then is reflected back to us from the collective. And we're not supposed to fix the collective. We're supposed to fix ourselves. I think in a YouTube that I did last week, they said, like, if you think of a rock. So when I was a kid, we used to go to the lake and skip rocks across the water. And they said, you are the rock. And when you put a rock in water or you skip, what happens? The waves go out, right? The waves don't come into you. So this idea that the collective or other people need to change in order for your life to change is not it. You need to change. You manifest your reality based on your beliefs in trauma. So the way to fix that is for you to heal the wounds that your higher self very much knows what they are. And then you start to manifest that world without the trauma. So there's a level of, not just in spirituality, but even in those that aren't involved, and not having control over their circumstances. And again, that's not true either. You create your reality based on your beliefs, limiting or not, doesn't matter. And what you think you'll get something out of it is what you'll create. And we need to start honoring that and start taking our power back, really. It's only been through society of thousands of years, potentially even the patriarch, that has allowed us to believe that someone else is in control, not us.